never-ending saga of the baby birds. Every day. And what earmarks this part of my life is it rained every day. We lost our baby cardinal on the last tape. Looks like it's going to rain all day today, but while I'm having my coffee, I have this little group entertaining me. His little beady eyes blinking at me here. I just love these birds. One advantage about having 30 days of rain in 30 days, one advantage is you never have to add water to the pond. We got baby fish flying around in here, baby birds. This has just been an exceptional season, except we have everything but good flying weather. Well, the Brodak meet is less than a week away, and I guess you can get a view of what our club field looks like. Basically underwater, half underwater, I don't know, third underwater. What a mess. Holy magooey. Now, the last time we were here, there actually were big fish swimming around here. God, you can't believe this. Look at this, water everywhere. So I'm guessing there's not much we can do about it, and I'm guessing we're not going to get a lot of flying in today, unless we have some pontoons. The Gardens, welcome to the Garden State Circle Burner Field. Bring your hip boots. Now you may think this isn't a big deal, but this is how big the mosquitoes are here. Look at the size of this mosquito. He's as big as the hood ornament on my car. The size of this guy. And they are everywhere. So we're basically, it's a lost day. It's flooded, the mosquitoes are out. Time to go back to the shop. Now this morning, Paul and I went to the circle burner field, but unfortunately we didn't have a submarine. It's about half covered with water from the tide being high. So what we did, we made the big trek down to Middlesex to try to work on Paul's motor run. And, well, we're going to pick it up with, I'll let Paul tell you the story.
Well, we left off having taken the muffler off. It was running pretty well without the muffler. Had the power back.
Okay.
But we had switched both the fuel and the muffler at the same time. And thinking about it, when I first ran the engine, I didn't have a power problem when I was at 10% with the muffler.
Okay.
So I decided to step back, try 10% with the setup that I had, see if the power is back with the muffler, so just see if that's okay.
So that's your first test, is you want to run it with the muffler and the 10% and
right.
Power Master.
And then I wanted to try, because I was having that problem where it was cutting out on the outsides, I wanted to try the Uniflow vent exactly as it is, stock, and I made up a little rig to put the Uniflow vent into clean air.
Okay, right.
And then I've got a restrictor to try that, if that seems to work, and see if that gives any improvement. So,
did you bring a tank?
I brought another tank as well.
Okay. So, I think that we'll do it methodically, but I think the tank's going to be a thing. Now, the thing is, even though it doesn't look so bad, because of the way the air is blowing over the trees, it's been really unpredictable. So just be real safe and be real careful. It's a good day to do this, and see if we can learn something more. Now, so do you want to try it once with the muffler?
Yep.
Just the way we had it, but with the muffler.
And with the fresh 10%.
Okay, and let's see if it's the fuel you got from me last week? Okay, so let's see if this fuel makes any difference. All right, so it'll be interesting. And we're not wasting a good flying day. Again, we haven't had a good flying day all year. Boy, this is...
That was why, you said come here.
Yeah. I like the way you set up that Uniflow vent. That's a good test, a good way to test it.
Yeah, I figured it gave me a...
And that's where it should be, by the way, is right there. That's if you have a choice.
It's got to be changing when it's behind that engine.
Yeah, it's...
Whether it affects
I don't know. We'll find out. Well, you got a good data from the last session, too. So you can build on that, and we got it all recorded, so you're not going to miss or forget anything. forbid you're not a fisherman, you can catch fish while in between flights. In trying to help Paul, a lot of times, the thing you can do to help, let me get out from under the tree here, the thing you can do to help him more than anything else is to help him figure out how to figure it out. In other words, rather than just coming up with the answer, coming out to figuring out why or how something is happening. Now, I like that he put that uniflow vent, that we have two choices now. I'll put that on a close-up. I think that's a good thing anybody could try on a profile. See, it's cutting out. Now, when it's cutting out on outsides like that, the first thing that's telling me is lose the tank or it's not shimmed. And that was my conclusion at the end of the first session, was that the tank was giving him a problem. So he said he brought another tank, and that'll be probably our next test. It looks like it has enough power, but on outsides, I mean, it's only on outsides that he's having a problem here. Yeah, no good. I don't like that. Now, that could be the fact that the tank is out of shim, or that that tank isn't happy on that engine. Again, Tom Hampshire has that, pretty much that tank on the plane, and I guess he gets it to work, so. But especially with profile ships, no two ever resonate exactly the same. So you really don't have these bulletproof cures like you have. I think with full body ships, it's a lot easier to cure the problem because you're dealing with less resonance. But again, this is a day when the air is this crappy that we can use it to do stuff like this is fine. You sure wouldn't want to be pulling any wing over pullouts today. Because when the air comes over these trees, and it isn't consistent, it's nice right now. We have a little gap in the air, but when I flew before, boy, it was outright dangerous. But the point is, if I didn't get these flights, I'd have no flights before going to Brodax. I'd have nothing. And I wouldn't even have a feel for the handle. So sometimes you just have to take what nature gives you. All right, we're going to see how Paul feels about this. I know he's not going to be happy about that engine cutting out in vertical. Sex is a wonderful, beautiful flying field. Joe Adamusco and I flew here with all the Spitfire years. We've had many, many enjoyable days here. There's only one problem. It's a county park, so we have no input into these decisions. And they have deemed that because the neighbors live 20 miles away and they might hear us, that we can't start motors till 10 o'clock. And so that becomes a real negative because usually by 11 o'clock the air is unflyable. So when we used to be able to fly in the morning, boy, it was nice. But unfortunately, those days are a memory on the Spitfire videos. Now back to Paul. On this flight, we were trying to figure another thing out, that what's happening as you go further and further into the flight, it gets worse and worse. It starts out not really terrible, but as you get into the flight, it just wants to cut out every time you do an outside maneuver. So that's telling me that there's really a big part of it is that the tank is shimmed, or it's not drawing fuel the way it should from that chicken hopper tank. So when Paul is done with his little test, what we'll try to do is, I hope he's got the other tank with him, and that's the only way we're going to kind of narrow this down, is one step at a time. I show you what a well-engineered muffler is like. Now Paul landed, the wind got under the wing, and it doesn't show on the video how bad the wind is, but it got under there gave you some religion, huh? You believe me now, right? You didn't believe me before. Now he's a believer. And it just chopped it off. Now what's good is, it broke the way it should, rather than how some mufflers break and they take the ears of the engine off. This is really good that it broke this way. So take the other two parts off and save the screws. You have a tongue with you?
Yeah, no, I don't. No.
Just leave it open then.
I can leave it open.
But didn't scratch the plane. But now two things I noticed right away, now that we're into this a little bit. That tank's got to go. If you do shim it, what you've got to do, and I'm trying to think, you want it to run. Boy, you got me thinking about this tank all day. You want it to be richer inverted. Okay, so you got to shim, and I'd shim it a full 1/8 of an inch, or just take it off and say time for tomorrow. Mark on the thing where it's shimmed. See, he made like a fake little uniflow vent that he can just hook the uniflow for a test, but, well, or you want to test it once with the uniflow, but...
Let me give a long shot with that, just to see what happens.
Yeah, but it's what it is. As you get into the flight, the motor goes leaner and leaner, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. So you know it needs to be richened up when it's inverted. You know what I mean?
Yep, so I'll bring the tank up a little bit, and I'll switch to getting it into clean air and see what happens.
The tank needs to go down a good 1/8 of an inch. I wouldn't even fool with it.
Go down? I thought...
If you want to lean it right side up and richen it inverted, you need the tank to go down. I know it's hard to figure that out. Believe me, my brain is fried from being here too. And that air. You see how that air tricks you?
Yeah.
It's nice for a while, all of a sudden, wow.
Yeah, I mean it was 180 degrees up from...
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, well, but it's still better than fishing or whatever we would be doing at the circle burner field.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so lower the tank.
Lower the tank. This is a good way to test a uniflow. You also shimmed the tank?
Yeah.
You moved it down, okay?
Down about an 1/8 of an inch or so.
Okay.
Maybe a little more.
Well, I'd say an 1/8 of an inch is going to, that's the direction you want to go in. Now, he's going to be able to try uniflow pressure now, as opposed to it was behind the engine where the air isn't really clean. This is where a uniflow vent should always be, is on the inside of the fuselage, at least according to the people that for years have written about it. I'm not so sure, but a lot of people seem to think that's where the uniflow vent should be if you're going to run uniflow. What happened is Paul went to start the engine and it's rubbing on the back plate. So what it's telling me is when you hit on the muffler, it cocked the motor either down or up. Take a piece of paper and see if you can go around the whole the ring since it hit the muffler. I think what happened, loosen the screws, slide this forward a little bit, because it wasn't doing this before, or else we have to put some clearance in there. I mean, you gave it a good shot. Don't get me wrong. You were in child abuse mode there for a couple minutes.
You got something saying a shim of some sort?
Yeah, the point is you can't even put a piece of paper in there. We put a piece of cardboard from a glow plug box.
Oh, yeah, I can see at the bottom.
It's at the bottom because that's...
It rocked it down one bit. Yeah, you're right. Am I right?
So I would say if you loosen the bolts and just pull it forward, it's going to be...
Yeah, I think so.
You're going to go back. You probably have a lot of play in the you don't need more than about a couple thousandths, and then you've got it.
Yeah.
Loosen the motor. And by the way, another good tip, a lot of people learn the hard way, especially when a plane where the spinner back plate is rubbing, and you get to the field the first day of the year, and the spinner back plate's rubbing, and you just say, oh, that's okay, I'll just fly the plane. Now, make the clearance, put a piece of sandpaper, or just fly without the spinner, but don't let it be rubbing on the back plate. That really is not good for the motor, not good for the plane, not good for you. It's really a bad situation. Okay, now you see it's not the motor. Can you pull it forward?
Just a fraction. But
Okay.
it had rocked down more than...
Right, and it's only got to hit on one, you know, because it's cocked one way, whichever way you, yeah, when you hit it, the muffler, it pulled it back.
Yeah, I mean, I only had about 15 thousandths clearance in there to start with. So.
Well, you're too much of a craftsman. See, if you're a butcher like me, you could put your finger in there. You can crash the plane and not have to reset the clearance.
Yeah.
By the way, a neat way to do that is to take a piece of sandpaper on an old spinner back plate when you build a plane, and every time you put, you know, the original wood, just put the spinner on the plane and, you know, spin it a few times, grind it, and it'll be a perfect fit to the back plate. I mean, you've got everything else on this plane perfect. Why not have the spin? Well, it was up until you whacked it. But if the air was a little nicer, we'd be having a great day here. It's just so unpredictable. Be careful on the landing, too. Because now you're not going to hit the muffler, you're going to hit the spinner. You're going to get, I'm going to videotape it, too, just so. We're going to have some outtakes at the end of this video. Oh, man. Okay. Now, I just picked up on another thing, and I don't know why I didn't see it before. Another thing that Paul is doing. He starts the engine and just walks out to the handle. He never checks the clips, and he never verifies that they aren't knurled over. And what's going to happen, one time they're going to be a little crooked, you're in neutral, the elevators are down, and you're going to break a prop, or even worse, it'll happen on a wing over pull-out. So now, without a muffler, we know we have a little more power. He's got the tank shimmed. Even I don't know why I don't like this tank. I'm really prejudiced against this tank. But just keep in mind how critical a tank shim is. Think of it this way. A tank shim, or a tank setup, is just like the wing being level. What happens if you have it going lean inverted, which is what this was? Well, you never get insides right either, because you're going to be band-aiding over the outside part of it to get the inside right. You're never going to have both. The only way you're going to have both is if you're meticulous and spend flight after flight, and I like to do it in a horizontal 8. Now see, this used to shut off the second time you'd come around. It's still not perfect, but it's better. It sure is better. Now on insides, you can hear it come down and it gets rich at the bottom of the outside. What I want to do is keep shimming away at this until it's equal inside and outside both. It's fine on insides now. And if we can get it to just not do that thing of shutting off outside, we know we're going in the right direction now. We just got to keep hammering away at it. And when Paul lands, I'm gonna ask him to try to check the lines on the way out. In fact, it's a good idea whether you have solids or braids. Have an alcohol paper towel with you and wipe them on the way to the handle. This way the clips never go slack. You have tension in the lines for the whole time. You pick up the handle. The lines are just freshly cleaned. And don't think only solids have to be wiped. Wipe off a set of braideds at the end of the day and see what happens. Alright, we're going in the right direction. I think he's going to try going about a 16th more. And we'll just keep going until it's equal. And Paul fly for 2 weeks now. Here's what you do. You start the motor, and then you think you're some superstar. You just walk out to the handle, jog on and everything. If these clips happen to be like this, and I don't notice it. Now I notice it if it's like this. You know what I'm talking about. It's like this. If it happens to be like this. Now when you're walking out to the handle, what I like is, it just did it again. Grab the lines here and wipe them with a paper towel. Well, hold tension the whole time they go into the handle. And make that a habit, because guess when that'll happen? You'll fly 10,000 flights. You go to a contest, you're nervous, right? The guy launching the plane is Joe Babushka, and Joe Babushka is not looking. I look every time you fly, but I haven't caught you yet. But No, that's an important thing. Get in the habit of doing that because it will bite you at a critical time.
You know, I got in the habit of that was fine with the stooge, and I had read somewhere not to run the lines out when you're on a stooge because if the thing ever decides to come loose on you, you've got the lines in your hand.
That's bullshit. I don't believe that. I do it on my plane all the time.
It is a bad habit because you're right.
And you should always wipe the lines on the way out with alcohol rag. I mean, one paper towel. The thing you do, I put one paper towel in the beginning of the day, and that's it for the day. But if you look at, I'll take the one I have for today's flying.
No, you're right.
I mean, look at the crap that's come off the lines already. There's all kind of schmutz on here.
Yeah, I've got the one I just ran out, and yeah, I agree.
It's a good habit to get into as soon as possible because it will come back to bite. And the day it bites you, you say, ah, that windy son of a gun, he's right again. And I hate being right. I'd rather be rich, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I'd rather drive a new car than be right and have an old car, you know.
There you go.
Okay, we want to get in the habit of doing it. Even if at the end of the day you get this in your hat, that's a big positive thing. Now, tell me what you did for this flight so we document it. You lowered the tank even more?
Yeah, the only change is lowering the tank by another 1/8 of an inch.
Okay, and you've got, of course, the Uniflow, little pressure with the Uniflow. See, another way, if you like the way this works, you could put a permanent Uniflow tube in there.
Yeah, that's what I planned to do.
And then save this for testing other planes.
That's exactly what I planned to do. I didn't want to put it on there permanently and then find out I didn't need it.
Right, and we'll try my tongue muffler on that when, next time we get a session in. Try it without the tongue muffler, with the tongue, then make a decision.
As a matter of fact, I didn't lower the tank.
So I hope Paul is going to pick up some little things that'll help him, like this line thing. And I guess that's the real purpose of the videos, other than to watch the baby birds grow up. And, not all of them make it, of course. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some like Chicky live forever, hopefully. And some like our little cardinal. Now it seems like it's too rich now. Now he's gone too far, we got to go back half of the amount. But all these little tips combined, I hope will make Paul a better flyer. And if you could pick up some of this stuff, not everybody can come and fly with us. Some of this stuff will help you, I hope. I certainly see in the last 2 weeks working with Paul some progress, so can't be all bad. The thing is, when you want to make a video that has some real useful information on it, a lot of times it's not real pretty, not real professional, because the mistakes we all make, a lot of times they're just plain old embarrassing. But if we can help each other, and the videos certainly allow me to do that, I think we're all better off. Where you are now, you're a 1/16 of an inch too far down. So if you can somehow measure that, can you measure off an engine fin? You got a ruler or something down? Yeah, a ruler? Paul's got another tank. Is it a chicken hopper or a regular?
No, it's a regular tank.
Okay, it's worth a try, just to see if that's going to add some, because what it is, this is just not as consistent as I would like, and I'm just more familiar with the standard old tanks that we all use, and they all seem to work, and every time you get a little cute or a little too cute, it just makes it more difficult. Anyway, but I think what you got, Paul, is a good lesson in shimming tanks. I mean, because, if you can't hear it, if you can't hear the motor going rich lean, if you're, and some people can't hear that, you're really at a disadvantage. Wow. All right, you're going to put the other tank on?
Well, yeah, I want to see where we are just to get it.
You reference it off a head fin. That's a good idea.
So if I go from the top of the glow plug, I'm right about in line right now.
And you want to go higher?
I want to go maybe a 16th to higher.
The thickness of an Allen wrench higher to start with. And you might get it on the first 1 or 2 adjustments. So
I mean, it should be close to the same, I would think, for both tanks, but maybe not.
Well, not always. I just don't know how that chicken hopper affects everything, because it's pulling fuel from further away. You got to realize what happens on inside maneuvers and outside. The plane is doing this. So on an outside maneuver and an inside maneuver, it's not going to be exactly the same. And the further you make that dimension, the more accented that yaw becomes. See, if you had an adjustable rudder. See how my rudder has that little adjustment? I can adjust that in and out. I can adjust the tank shim just by adjusting the rudder. But you can't really do it with this, so you've got to do it all with the tank shim. Alright, switch the tanks and then we'll try it again. Seems like this is real time consuming. You know what? It really is. But no, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how many people want to get it right in 2 shim tries, and that's it, and they'll never do it again. They'll live with it being wrong. We got guys in the club, they live with it wrong for 10 years, but they won't spend a half an hour getting it right. And that's why some people progress and some don't. Now this is the other tank that Paul had, and it's shimmed pretty much where the other one was. So we're going to try to do the same thing, but I think it's going to be better off with a standard 1x2 Rodak type tank. Any of the people that make 1x2 tanks, they just seem to work great. Another thing I noticed with this tank, when Paul was, it's out of shim, when Paul was running out to the handle, is the air bubbles through the fuel line are astronomical, so he's really just running on a milkshake right now until we get it settled down. Anyway, but he's learning. I think it's good quality information that at the end of the day he'll be a lot smarter and a lot quieter than he was this morning. An AT6 just flew over the field here while we're... Oh well. You better get your AT6 in the air. I'm getting hungry. You know, let's get one more flight each and then chow down. Coming back. Every time we walk away, he comes back. He's so impressed with Paul's motor run, he's coming back for another shot at us. I think he's loading the machine guns too. Look at this guy. This is cool as can be. We're seeing a little aerobatic show here. Everybody knows I went for a ride on one of these AT6s. If you ever want to see a funny video, boy, that is it. Windy behind the controls of the AT6. Let's just put it this way. Ted Fancher has nothing to worry about. They'll really be impressed with your motor run, that's all I got to say. You didn't come over when I was flying.
Coming over to see.
Oh, I wish you could come see Miss Ashley. Oh, Miss Ashley. Oh yeah, when 6 of them, when they do the skywriting thing. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, where the aircraft carriers were off Portland Harbor.
Yeah.
Bring them in. Fabulous.
You hear that sound? I went in a Stearman at the end of the Nats. We went. We all took a Stearman ride. $40 for a half-hour Stearman ride. Cool as can be. Yeah, who wants to see this? We don't want to see jets. Lose the jets. Bring the Stearmans back. Round engines forever. Yeah, I could never forget that sound, boy. Very nice. As cool as can be. Paul's fueling up for his next flight in the Fuji Blimp. Well, you know what? There's a net game tonight. He's going up to the stadium where I live. There's a net game, yeah. I'm telling you, we are blessed. You fly with Paul, you get to see nothing but warbirds, blimps. Oh my God, what a day. Look at this, how cool is this? He's turning around, he wants to see you do a flight. Todd Lee was here, he was by my house. You know, he used to fly a blimp. We went up to Circle Burner Field and somebody else was flying a blimp. He was all jealous. All right, baby, let's get a flight in and let's go eat. I'm hungry. Now we're back. You can see the breeze blowing on the little chicks, but they're getting ready to fledge. Any day now. They have their initial feathers. What's funny is they yawn. In the middle of everything, they'll take a big yawn. God, we had fun looking at these guys. I just can't tell you how much fun this has been. It's been priceless. There's really nothing more relaxing than getting home from a long day of flying at the field with Paul Citron, trying to go fishing on the Circle Burner Field. Come home, have some nice relaxing flights, maybe fly the Brodak Cardinal a few times, maybe fly the Vico Chief or the Olympic, maybe even fly one of Dub Jet's speed models. I see Dub is here from Texas. There's Duffy Jr., and Wendy, and Bob. And George Aldrich joined us. Oh! And it's a little hot out, so we're going to go for some ice cream. How about some ice cream for the kids? Well, you want to put the top down on your convertible 55 Buick? And check out your 55 Chevy. We'll see how many people are riding in the Oldsmobile convertible today. Maybe just go out in a rowboat for a little while and cool off. We've added about 200 people to our layout since the last time I videotaped it. Looks like the weeds are growing here too. Gotta get the weeding done. fun with the layout, and after a hard day of flying, it's nice to unwind up here and just check out our B-25. Make sure we got the engines running right on that. Make sure everything's working the way it should. Cardinal Field.
Oh, she's on the nest again. We don't want to disturb her. But I'm going to be sad to see these babies go.
Now, I'm glad to have spent the last couple of sessions with Paul Citron, because it allows me to be a better teacher when I can find a student that's really receptive to trying different things. Now, if you want to keep this in mind, this is Tank Shimming 101, and again, I'm trying to put useful information on the video, something that may help everybody. The motor always has a point at which it wants to suck fuel. There's a mean point somewhere inside the motor, and it is not the spray bar, and it just happens that randomly it turns out to be the spray bar. There's a mean average point where it wants to suck fuel. Now, typically on a Schnurly motor, when we say a tank shim, you would think, well, you're just going to put the tank right in line with the glow plug and that's going to do it. Well, you'd be wrong. It almost always on Schnurly motors, it's a little bit higher, whatever the reason is. And again, it isn't important to know the mechanics, it's just to know that it does happen. Now, in Paul's case, he has these little things, or Brodak sells these nice little tank adjusters that you can adjust the tank up and down. But there's some other things that enter into this. Number one, if you're adjusting the tank and you saw Paul kind of lay a ruler on the head fins to get them lined up, well, it isn't going to do you much good if the tank is in like this, because you don't have a steady fuel head. Now, what happens with every motor? See, people think because you have a profile there are different rules, or gravity doesn't apply, or it's like people that get fat and don't know calories count whether you eat them at night or during the day. The rules always apply. Tank shimming rules always apply. If this suction point, if you can determine where that is and get the tank directly on center to that point, well, you would think, well, I'll have a real good chance of getting it to run equally upright and inverted. Now, in Paul's case, we fooled around basically 2 full days with different size tanks, but Paul is using a much thicker tank and a chicken hopper tank, and it's not giving me the kind of accurate feedback I like. What I like are tanks that are 1 inch by 2 inches and have a wedge. And these, I sell them, Brodak sells them, probably 20 other people sell them, Randy Smith. So they're 1 by 2 by the length. If it's 4 inches, it's a 4-ounce tank. The length determines the amount. Now, with these type of tanks, this is what works in built-up bodies. The reason it sometimes is a little harder to get shimmed in a profile, the engine's laying on its side, number 1. Number 2, the front end of any profile is a diving board. The piston is going up and down and the nose is acting like a diving board. A lot of times if I put my camera on 10,000 frames a second and the motor's running 10,000, I can actually see this. Just like you see a propeller in stop motion, I can see the nose moving. You put your hand there, you can feel it. Knowing that, there's a lot of ways we can make it better. You can somehow get some soft rubber sponge material between the tank and the plane, something to isolate it. What I used to do years ago is I'd have, this being the front view of the profile, I'd have holes drilled through where I thought the tank should be, put a piece of foam rubber in here. Closed cell foam is the best if you can find it, because it doesn't compress. Then mount the tank in there, and it assumes you know already where the shim is going to be, and run zip ties around it so that it has a little bit of flexure to it. It's not rock solid. Now, the way you can tell if you've got that part of it right is you look in the fuel line while the motor's running. Let it run out a half a tank again, and if you see air bubbles in there, tighten this, loosen it, put more rubber under here, get it isolated as much as possible. That's step 1 to getting this right, is to get it mounted correctly have it infinitely adjustable, and now have what I call the basic rules of tank shimming 101. And this is how I would go about doing it. Get yourself up a little chart or a little, because it's easy to forget this stuff. Choice one would be set up a video camera and just let it run like we do with the B25. Just let it run, because then you can go back and time lapse. Level laps are a rough indicator. If the laps here, let's just make numbers up. If this is 5.0 and these laps are 5.2, that means it's slower inverted and you want to adjust the tank. Now that's one nice way to do it, but there's an even better way, and I call it the horizontal 8-way. And it's best if you can do this with a video, but if you can't, have somebody watch it. Watch for where the motor breaks. In this case, if it's breaking into a 2-cycle here and here equally, well, you got it pretty close. But a lot of times it'll stay lean in one side or on one side and not the other. Well, this is giving you information, and this is going to, by having a little chart, a little database, you can basically cut down the amount of time it takes to get the shim accurate. If we reference everything from the plane being upright, and we want the motor to run faster upright, we lower the tank. If we want it to run slower, we raise the tank. The reason is we want, imagine, all you have to do to prove this to yourself, start the engine in the plane and do this. Just start raising the nose. Well, sooner or later it's going to break or increase in speed. Start putting it down a little. Sometimes the vent will be open, but it'll start going slower. So by raising and lowering the tank, we can find a point where the level laps are relatively equal, and I'd say within a tenth is fine. And if you're wrong, it could always be faster inverted, not faster upright, unless you're working on some unique trim thing. You can also adjust the speed the same way here to get your 8s equal. Now this is really tank shimming 101, but you'd be amazed how many people, it's not that they can't get it. They eventually get it after 2 years of shimming, but to get it on the first, second, or third day right away, get it at the field. Now there are a lot of kind of tanks, and a lot of people have various success with them over the years. That standard 1x2 wedge tank with all the tubes forward has been the standard of the industry. That's what almost everybody gets to work almost every time. In Paul's case, he had this tank with a chicken hopper. Well, sometimes they work under various conditions. Sometimes they don't. I think that the chance of getting it right away is better with a tank like that. Not always. Tom Hampshire has a tank like that works fine. He's taken time to shim it. Also, when you make a tank thicker in any dimension than that 1-inch engine, the fuel load is sloshing back and forth in maneuvers. And so that's why over the years most people have settled on that type shape if they're using a metal tank. Now if you're using a plastic clunk tank, Bob Hunt has an excellent video on how he sets up his clunk tanks. I won't go into that because basically I don't use clunk tanks, and I don't know when they get them to work, how they get them to work. Bob Gieske gets them to work that meet his needs, but this is the tank that I am saying 99% of the time, 99% of the people will get this to work. You want to somehow, again, soft mount it if it's a profile. You don't want to have it that it's mounted rigid like it's built in, it's glued to the fuselage. Not a good idea. You want a little bit of flexure in there, some kind of sponge, rubber in there. Maybe even another choice would be a zip tie going around it with a piece of fuel tubing around it, so it's totally isolated. And you want to be able to loosen the mounts, whatever type you choose, and be able to infinitely shim it. I would say realistically within a 1/16 of an inch would get you what you want, and if it's wrong, let it be a 1/10 of a second faster inverted. Now I think that's really about as simple as it gets. I call it tank shimming 101, and it's worked for Paul. Now Paul has gone home with 2 ideas in mind. He's going to get what I call a standard tank. Then here's the thing. You get this 1x2x4 tank working, you get a good motor run. Now if you have an experimental tank, let's say you decide you want to make a tank that looks like this, with tubes coming out here. Well, yeah, but you always have this first, get this square one. Then do your experimental tank. And maybe you'll get this to work. But the odds are good, you're stacking the odds in your favor if you go with what people have used for the last 50 years and made work. And again, they're not hard to find, they're available commercially, Uniflow or no Uniflow, and they work on profiles or no profiles, or on built-up ships. So that, or if you want to spend $100, you can get a carbon fiber tank. And it's the same technology that basically is going to put the odds in your favor. So I hope that information is going to help. I hope we're going to see Paul very soon. He's considering doing some motor testing. I wish he had put clamp mounts in the plane, because I would have loaned him my Rojet 40 to try. He wants to try some different motors. He's got a K&B, he has the Brodac. He wants to try different motors, but he doesn't have clamp mounts, and they don't fit in conveniently. Had he put the clamp mounts in, it'd already be done. Anyway, that's the information that we basically confirmed in our mind today. And we had a pretty good day, considering that the air was unflyable. We didn't lose a day. The birds are getting ready to fledge. The trains are tooting and shooting, and we're hoping tomorrow's going to be even better. We only have a few days left before Brodax, and we'd love to get some real practice in. But again, we haven't had much weather at all.
Well, we're going flying this morning. It looks like a flyable day, but having my coffee here in the dark. Guess why? Because the little birds prefer being fed in the dark. Oh, I just love this. Is this any of them? Wait, look at the faces on these guys. I love these guys. I'm sitting here in the dark, all alone, just so I can possibly capture. Now, when the parents come by, and they do, if the light is on, they don't like to feed the birds. They like to feed them while I'm sitting in the dark. It's very nice.
Boy, you know, the shame is we're going to be at Brodax when they fledge, the day they fledge. I don't know. I'm so excited. Look at the B-25 down there. More excited about the birds right now.
I'll tell you, there's just some days Rutherford is a magic place to be. There's birds raising babies in the nests. This afternoon or tomorrow we're going to come home and plant all our annuals for the year, and then the yard will really start to look nice. This time of year in Rutherford, it's just a magic place. Well, it started out looking like we might get a couple of flights. Turned out to be not a great day. We hung out at the field, of course, and tried our best to just get something out of the day, but it looks like we're not going to get much done before Brodax. It's just going to be a very disappointing preparation for Brodax. There's just no way you can fly in this, that's for sure. And they had insult to injury. It's supposed to rain for the next day or so. Now, we're here, and Tom Hampshire is going to do... What we're working on is trying to get, because it's still time to get ready for Brodax, try to get
Let's not show the embarrassing
both engines to shut off at the same time with Venturis. Now, of course, the tanks are 5 ounces. We're going to just try metering fuel now from this point on. But the first flight, it shut off within a lap, so I was amazed. I wish I could put that in a bottle. What Tom wants to do is we're going to flip it, and I don't have a tripod here. We're going to flip it, take the glow plugs out. Tom's going to do a compression test to see if we have the same compression on both engines. Now, because at one point in time the outer engine was running a lot longer, what I had done is just switch the heads, and it seemed like that brought us right back to where we wanted to be. You got the gauge? Let me see the gauge that you use. Ordinary automotive gauge?
No. Standard order Hobby Co.
Okay.
Their higher compression gauge.
Now, what do you look for in a motor like this?
The difficulty with these things is that I have no cross-calibration to anybody else's gauge. If you buy another Hobby Co. like this, the number's probably tied.
Yeah, it's like shoes.
If you buy an I4C
compression gauge, then I have no idea how the calibration is.
Exactly.
And it's not the calibration of the gauge, it's the size of the dead volume.
Right.
Because the dead volume,
And to explain that, if you put a garden hose on here and go to the plane,
right,
the dead zone that's inside, when Jim made his gauge, it was a glow plug and the gauge was welded to the, you know what I mean? There was
right
no.
to it.
Now, I don't know if that was
Now,
better
I
or
do
worse.
know I've had 3 Big Jim 60s
Okay.
in my hands, one of which that I
And what do they read on this?
glommed from Bill Hummel, which was brand new, was 60-61 on this gauge.
Okay.
So I used that as a benchmark. I don't know
That's a good starting
I don't know
point,
what
yeah.
Greenaway's numbers were on his gauge.
No, his gauge was 125 to 150, but
Okay.
but it's a
with no
different
dead
gauge.
volume.
Yeah, different
with
gauge.
no
so,
cross correlation to
Right.
the numbers at all.
right. Now, you like to do this when the motor's hot, when the motor's cool? Or?
I don't care. All I do is give it 5 or 6 drops of air tool oil to seal up the piston. Go.
So what we're going to do now, we'll do it off camera because we don't have a tripod. Or we don't. Zambelli was supposed to be here, but he's not here yet.
My foam cradle is in great shape. Unfortunately,
You'll never
it's
get-
home under my workbench.
You'll never get this thing in a foam cradle. like putting Tyrannosaurus Rex in a doghouse. That ain't going to happen. That's not... Okay, so I'm learning right now what a
Practice now,
commercial
yeah.
camera is. Yep.
Practice. We're going to fuel up with 4 ounces of this fuel and see. I'll get the time from my watch. I'll see if I can get a... But we'll be ready. If you hear anything sound like it's starting to shut off, just yell out to me because...
You want to rip those lines out now, Wendy?
I did it
on the way out.
Yeah, I did it.
Now, the only concern with the tank's not full, because this sits in negative rake, it may be that it's going to want to shut off an engine because the pickup will be up out.
You have 4/5 there. You're 80% full.
But this has a lot of rake. It sits in, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
It would stay on the ground forever if everything's neutral.
Yeah, and you're going to put 4 ounces in
I'm
each
doing
tank now.
4 pumps, just for the reference.
4 pumps in it. But then we're going to
With 5.5, it runs overtime.
now when the second engine starts, when you remember hit your watch.
Yeah. It's wet. Okay, then I'll run it through. These engines need a lot to get them. Choke it 5 times. If you just hold that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Run them through. If we get 2 of these shut-offs the same, I'll just be thinking maybe I'm dreaming and this isn't really happening. Okay.
No, I
Ready
do
to go.
think.
When you want me to, you tell me when to start the stopwatch. I've got one right here.
Okay, but I have the video. You don't need to watch if you have the video. Video's
Okay,
dead accurate.
we're recording now.
Okay, you could run downfield. Because this always starts easy. It's not a problem. So now I've said that. Boy, is that the death knell. See what I mean? Tanks aren't full though, so maybe it needs 2 or 3 more of these.
One engine out now. One lap. Two laps. Three laps. Second engine out now.
Now, let's see.
This is Bob Zambelli's. I'll let him do the show and tell. It's obviously some kind of a very exotic motor, so let's do a little show and tell before you fly it.
Okay, well, the most exotic thing on the airplane, of course, is Windy's carbon fiber gear.
Yeah, and who says they don't work on profiles?
Exactly.
What nonsense. They work perfect.
I've adapted it by, first I epoxied it on, then I drilled 2/4-inch holes, pushed 2 carbon fiber rods down in,
Oh, right.
epoxied them to this, and then in.
Oh, that's slick as can be. Yeah, that's
So
great.
now we can use this landing gear on profiles too. It was a quickie because this one used to have retractable gear, as you remember.
Yeah.
And I took it.
And it had the radio little pod inside. Okay.
Still does. It still has the radio.
Okay, so you got the, okay.
Yeah.
And you work the throttle, you don't have that you got it ready?
Fully operational. Here's a battery.
And obviously it idles like
I haven't idled it down yet. Now this is a device, the engine, it's a true 4-stroke engine. But what it has a gear-driven sleeve, if that makes any sense. There's a pair of bevel gears, there's a size 1 bevel gear on the crankshaft, and a bevel gear on the sleeve that is twice that size. So the entire sleeve rotates in this direction.
So there are no poppet valves?
There are no poppet valves, and also no cam gear, and no cam springs.
And how much does the motor weigh? That's a 58?
The motor weighs, it's a 58, and it weighs just a tad more than a Sato 56. So it's a little on the heavy side.
Okay.
And as you can see, there's nothing on top of the engine. The cylinder actually rotates while the piston's going up and down, and naturally it's a ring piston. The actual operation of the combustion, that is the power generating stroke, is the same as any 4-stroke engine. Now what happens is, in the rotating cylinder valve, there's a slot at the top of it that of course rotates with the sleeve, which rotates in a ball bearing.
Right.
As the piston's on the way down, from top dead center to bottom dead center, of course it's creating a vacuum. At that point, the sleeve hole comes up to the intake. So as the piston's on the way down, it's sucking in the intake charge.
Oh, how cool.
At the bottom, it's moved over this way and closed off the intake, and while it's on the way up, coming up toward top dead center, the hole is coming around, and when it comes to the glow plug port, it opens up there, fires your charge, continues over top dead center.
So that's a pretty wild little piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And what size props it turn? A 13 or 12?
No, this is a 12.6, and it's just...
what RPMs it like to live at, about 9,000?
I haven't tacked it, but I think, yeah.
But we'll tack it today when you fly it.
I have the tack with me.
Fantastic.
And we've just got a couple break-in flights on it. The interesting thing is, the last time
That is interesting.
on 4 ounces of fuel, it ran close to 8 minutes.
Whoa.
Which, that's a pretty...
Talking of 4 ounces, it looks like we're getting plenty of run on 4 ounces with the B-25.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I may even go to 3 3/4, but I'll meter it if it's going to be like for a competition.
Now, the only thing, of course, the crank in this runs in 2 ball bearings, like most engines. The sleeve has 1 large ball bearing,
Right.
and I think it's a bushing at the top. The problem is, inherently, there's very little compression, so you must use a starter.
Well, poor baby.
Yeah, that's from the factory.
You cannot put your finger in there and get it cut.
We did try to start it, and
It's just better to start all of them by,
I'm going to
especially this guy. Can you imagine flipping his B-25 by hand? What a nightmare that would be. Smacking your watch into the side of the fuselage.
What do you call a first offender thief in Baghdad?
What?
Lefty.
I heard a good joke about banjos. You like banjos?
Yeah, I like
Guy had a priceless banjo in the back of his car,
Right.
left it in the back, went into a restaurant, came out, saw his window had been smashed, and his worst fear had been realized. Somebody put another banjo in his car.
I heard this. I heard the same thing with
There were 2 more banjos in there.
I heard the same thing, only with an accordion.
We went to this Polish concert Friday night. Karen ran the concert, for the senior.
Oh, that was the non-profit?
Yeah, non-profit. Well, they made $1,200, so I don't know. Maybe we should keep $100 for our B25 upgrade fund.
So what's the difference between a dead banjo player in the road and a dead guitarist in the road?
What?
There's a pretty good chance the guitarist was really on his way to a gig.
You guys are so bad. I can't go there. Let's fly. So let's see, what's the routine for starting? You use 4 ounces of fuel.
Yep, and just start like...
By the way, how much these motors sell for?
I don't even know. This is on loan to me from
a
guy who's...
Already made in England?
Yeah. Now,
Pop, should I put my finger on the muffler there?
I already did that.
Okay.
No, it's dry. It didn't pop at all.
When it pops,
Now it dropped
Oh, yeah.
off the needle valve.
Oh, yeah.
Now we got some fuel.
Uh-oh. I'm going to stand back a little. Sounds like it wants the most in grass. Trust me, there's fuel in there now.
Yeah.
Whoa. Maybe you want to just flip it through a few times?
that's all it does.
Okay.
Well, let me start it on full flow.
What if you put a drop of lighter fluid in there? Would that clear it? That's what used to work with the Satos. 1 drop. Well, you know when it's got fuel in there right away. Whoa. Ooh, that's a mean-sounding engine, baby.
The trouble is, that's all it'll do when
Oh, you did that with the throttle?
Yeah.
So the on mode.
Okay, I guess it doesn't.
And what do you run? 4-stroke nitro, 16% oil?
This is the stuff that they recommended. Got it, Tom?
I bet you run it on my fuel, it'll run better. First time we've ever seen an RCV fly. This is the first flight of the RCV. Sounds a little rich. Rich, huh, Tom? Rich on the level, but let's see after he gets into the over 45 stuff. Yeah. Find out how bad it falls off up top. Then I'm just trying to give him some data. Well, it looks like a nice steady running motor though. And in a profile, that's amazing. Did he say if they made any smaller versions of this, or there's only one version, bigger version?
I've only seen ads for this one version.
So it's not like Sato where you can buy every size. Yeah, my thing it's just one tad rich, one click
If
rich.
they get this thing happy without the without poppet valves and springs and valve gears.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot less moving stuff grinding around in there.
And I believe that sleeve is supported in ball bearings.
Okay.
Which means if you get one,
I'd love to see one taken apart.
if you get one of these things that's happy,
I'll get Zambelli to come to the house one night and take it apart.
forever proposition.
Yeah.
I've seen a cutaway drawing of it in the magazine.
Bring it to the field next time you come. I just like to see everything. I don't want to leave any stone unturned here. So boy, we're sure lucking out with all the rain we had, Tom. I'm just glad to have dry feet for a change.
Exactly.
Not see fish swimming out by my handle.
Look, I got shoes on.
Wow.
I left my swim fins home.
Right.
What a day.
You know what I did yesterday? It was raining so bad I took Karen to the movies to see, you know what? Finding Nemo. What a great movie. If you haven't seen Finding Nemo, it's an adult movie. It's not a kid's movie. It is absolutely a cool movie. Then we came home and watched Ice Age on TV. We had the day of cartoons yesterday. It never stopped raining by me for the whole day. It was terrible. I'm surprised this field there's only one puddle out there.
Yeah, but that depression there is very deep.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. You hit that on takeoff, that'll cost you a prop pretty much every time.
Well, this motor certainly looks like it has some possibilities if this is his first day running it. I didn't ask him, does he have an OS Max 4-stroke plug in it? That 4-stroke plug may clean up that burble too.
Did you ask him how much bench time he has on this?
No, I didn't. I'll ask him when he lands.
I mean, you certainly could break that in your backyard and not
Oh, you could break that in your house and just run a garden hose out the window.
point the thing out the cellar window.
Yeah. Leave the garage door up, and just put it in the back. No, my neighbors wouldn't even know this was running. The only thing that concerns me, when you have that burble and level flight, I'm always thinking your one burble turns into a two burble, you're away from having a shut-off.
Yeah.
And I always like just having a little bit leaner.
It is showing.
Oh, look what's over the field. The AT6s are back. Oh, you can't see. It's right over the field now. We have AT6s. He were here earlier in the week. They were flying right over the field. All right, so we have, I don't know what video Bob got. He got some of the B-25. I don't know if it was going to be, we really just wanted for the lap times and total times, but we're going to get something here. All right, that's a clean enough shuttle if it shuts off. You can live with one or two of those.
To be still about a third full.
So then it's the tank.
Well, I don't know.
Lose the tank, I don't know. I'm not big on plastic tanks, you know that. And if you need a 2-ounce tank, you just put a metal 2-ounce. Whatever he needs, 3-ounce.
It's in the drink!
Oh! He lands in the one puddle. Look at this. There's one puddle on the whole field. He lands his poor RCV in it.
It's really a water-cooled engine.
Bobby, that motor doesn't run bad at all. Not bad at all.
Nothing's dialed in on it.
I would be running it just a tad leaner, and that's about it.
It needs a good hour.
Anyway, we're going to try to get Bobby to video some more flights of the B-25 if we can, but we'll see if he's a good photographer.
That one is soaking wet. It's only so it'll maybe be a little bit quicker on the start, and I won't get an 8 start. Okay, now this time, do you want to start outside first? Nah, we'll just go with this. Let me start. Safety-wise, I think you're better off inside. You bet. No, the way I'm doing it is that you don't want to have that one running and fall into it. I think. Yeah. You got a dead battery? No?
We're recording now, so...
Okay, we'll record. That's how we're going to let air. It gets good and wet now. Something's got to be soaking wet to start right up. It's crazy.
1 lap. 2 laps. 3 laps. 4 laps. 5 laps. 6 laps. 7 laps. 8 laps. 9 laps. 10 laps. 11 laps. 12 laps. 1 engine out, 13 laps. 14 laps. 15 laps. 16 laps. 17 laps. 18 laps. 19 laps. 20 laps. 21 laps. 22 laps. 23 laps. 24 laps. 25 laps. 26 laps.
Not sure what quality the flights that we're getting of the B-25 are, because Bob is not real familiar with the camera, but I'm certainly glad that I have something. And I guess if he did the last flight, and I think he did from downwind, the thing that you'll notice, we're trying to work on the motors shutting off at the same time until we get the small carburetors to where we're going to be real happy with them, and I hope that's all going to come into fruition. But because Brodax is next week, we really don't have time to be retrofitting and recon. And this is the first day we've actually had real flights where you can get 2 or 3, one right after another. We got about another hour to go, and so Bob's playing with his throttle. This is one of the planes that we use to do Zetron stuff. He has his ground frequency radio here that he can control the throttle, and you can do it. It's a kind of neat little system to use, kind of cool. He's got a bunch of Zetrons. I'm surprised he doesn't have one in this plane. He's probably got them all in the Beechcraft. You've seen the Beechcraft. You have one in a giant flight streak, one in a GV. Hey, come on! Anybody that has never done this, of trying to control a throttle during a flight, it looks so easy when you see somebody that's an expert to it. When you go to do it, you could die, it's so hard. Anyway, but it's fun. And we're actually, the objective of coming down here was try to get the run times on this. I think we're closing in on having it. I hope we are.
One engine out. One lap. Two laps. Three laps.
What'd you count? 3 laps?
You got the little Cardinal still? Wow, you guys got...
Hey, let's move.
Yeah, I know. Who's that flying over there? I'm not sure. Can't tell. Yeah, go ahead. Get a flight before the rain comes. You never know how long we're going to be out here. It could end real quick. For lunch, the birds have finally left the nest. In fact, there's only one left. I had to go out and catch him. I thought I scared him, but he flew away.
He's the last of the 4. All 4 of them made it.
Actually, one is on a garage roof over there now.
So, for a little adventure in birddom, we got to see them grow up from the point of being eggs to today where they finally left the nest. It's hard to describe.
How much fun was this having these baby birds?
Best.
Was this wild?
Go get me off camera.
Oh, stop it.
I'm planting. I love
She's
that.
planting her flowers today, and so this is the last you'll see of the baby birds.
We spent the rest of that day planting, pruning up our backyard, and watching the mother bird and the father bird giving these birds flying lessons. I went over and picked them up 2 or 3 times when they got stuck in the hedges and just put them out in the driveway, and the mother and father come right over and they give me this little peep, 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 peep. I wish I would have got some of it on video. But by the end of the day, all 4 of them were flying around in our backyard and up in the trees, and it's the end of a very, very exciting and I think just a fun time that we've had sharing the world of birds, the amazing world of birds. I love amazing birds. Chicky, look at where he sits. Chicky, you don't know those little baby birds got flying lessons? Where were you? You out giving a stunt clinic or something? A stunt clinic? Is that what you're doing? Oh man, Chickadooey. The amazing world of birds. I really am fascinated by birds. Every year, Karen and I work on a garden together. It's one of the things we enjoy together. And she does this incredible planting. I just like to show it off for her. Because we're going to get ready to pack the car and go to Brodax. But just a couple things we've learned in the last couple of days. We learned plant early. And with all this rain we've had, everything is just growing like crazy. There's no doubt ever that this is going to be a great year for a garden. Anyway, we did get that day in with the B25, and we did have a couple of things that I thought were interesting, and I'd like to pass on that we've learned in the last couple of days. Got the loyal subscribers, or almost all of them, that have been around since we started the B25 project. This is kind of a summary of information that I think you can use on other planes beside the B25, that's for sure. Now, on the first couple of days that we flew the plane, and I'm referencing off of my own scale, we were somewhere, I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt and say on my crazy scale, which may be off an ounce or 2, we were showing 86 ounces. Now, this is information, and I'm just thinking there's a lot of things here that we could share with people, say, flying Brodax Cardinals. Well, what's happened is as the year has gone by, actually more than a year, we've been trying to lighten up as many parts of the plane as possible.
Now, one of the things we did, the very first thing was we put the less than scale wheels on at some cost to scaleness, but that got rid of more than an ounce, maybe an ounce and a half, and that brought us down to, I'm just making rough numbers here, maybe 84 and a half, and with that, performance really, I said, whoa, it really got better. Well, as will be the case with a lot of planes, that's true, and that's going to be the way it is most of the time. Now, we've since, this time, done a lot of things to lighten the plane up. We've taken a basically 1 ounce battery that was in the nose of the plane for the Zetron and put it in the wingtip, and took out 1 ounce of tip weight. Now, the plane originally started with 3 ounces of tip weight. So by moving this to the wingtip, we've gotten rid of another ounce. That brought us down to about 83 and a half, if I remember right. And again, I don't have my notebook right at hand, but I don't need to. It's not the point. Now, what had happened in the meantime, we had replaced what were the English props that were a little heavy with Brian Ether props, knocking about another half ounce off, just rough numbers, brought us down to 83. Well, then we flew the plane with OS Max motors, and boy, that was about a 4 ounce saving. So when it, and I'll make a dotted line here, when it flew at 79 ounces, boy, I just was so impressed. It just really nice. But of course, the OS Max motors are not replaceable, and John Pothier had loaned me them. And what I didn't want to do is get involved in something that I couldn't replace or have overhauled on an overnight mail system. So I kind of, that's one of the choices, but in good air, I think the Maxes would be fine. In the wind, the Rojets just pulled a lot better. But in the back of my mind, all this time, I kept thinking, wow, when that plane was under 80 ounces, it just turned into a real, it was very, very performance oriented, and I think it actually approached being as good as some of the better stunt ships that are just plain old square wing stunt ships. But I had to find a way to get that weight off. Now, in a combination of things, Bob Zambelli and Tom Hampshire made me up some lightweight motor parts. That got us down about another ounce with all the stuff, the nuts and washers and thrust cones and everything. We got it down to 82. Well, because we basically have to fly over grass almost all summer, I thought, well, the only way I can have my cake here and eat it too is I have to get rid of the 3 ounce of carburetors. Now, these OS Max carburetors, first off, they were, I think, too big, and they were using the whole 5 ounces of fuel. And I really thought it would be worth a try to just fly it with Venturis. Well, with the 3 ounces of carburetors off the plane, I'm down to 79, and I have the Rojet motors. I have the more powerful of the two motors, and the performance really came alive. It has been just better than I could have ever expected. Now, I'm going to compete with it at some of our contests, maybe at Brodax, I'm not sure, but what I really want to have more than anything else is I want to be starting to record information, because all of this information is going to go into the next project or one of the next projects, and we never know because we have so many health-related and time-sensitive things going on here, our A26. And I'm sure that when we finish the second wing in the A26 project, what we're going to have is we're going to be at 79 with the scale wheels and a lot more of the little fancy things. Now, just to transfer some of this information into another venue, one of the things, you build it, and we're just using this as an example, you build your straight line stunt ship, non-semi-scale stunt ship, and you say, geez, everything's great except, boy, the plane's a little heavier than I want it to be. I guess I got carried away with the paint, or I got carried away with something. Well, what are the things I can do? Well, inevitably, you can wind up trying to find the lightest spinner you possibly can find, replacing maybe that ounce and a half spinner with one that weighs about a half ounce. And there were several choices that available. Another choice, you can take and make an imaginary line somewhere on the plane about at the CG and start at the back of the plane and sand and buff as much of the clear off, especially on the bottom. And I've gotten as much as an ounce off by doing that. Now, a lot of times you can fine-tune the plane. You want to fly the plane, find out, do you really want to, well, a lighter spinner isn't going to do you much good, if you need the nose weight. Well, the best of all worlds is to have the light spinner and get the weight off the back. So you're always dealing with the plane, it's like a seesaw on the center of gravity. Well, almost every plane that comes out heavy, when a plane is heavy, it almost guaranteed is going to need nose weight. So rather than adding all this nose weight, the objective should be to get weight off the back. And some of the other things that maybe not so obvious, you can get a real light half-inch tail wheel as opposed to maybe one that's a little more scale. In an all-out case, if the vertical CG is okay, fly it without the wheel pants. You can see, I think it's on this video or the one before it, how Bob Zambelli adapted carbon fiber gear. That'll knock an ounce and a half off the plane, or you can just fly without the wheel pants altogether to get the weight right. But keep in mind, you're always dealing with that seesaw. Now, you also can go, and I've done this on many other planes, a lighter motor. Not all motors weigh the same. You can take out, in fact, the Brodak 40 is a good example of a very light, inexpensive motor. Probably the lightest of the 40s, one of the lightest. Well, so what happens is you knock an ounce off here, an ounce off here, an ounce off here, an ounce off here, a little bit here, and maybe an ounce of paint. All of a sudden you look, and that, let's say that 50-ounce plane maybe becomes a 44-ounce plane. Well, you don't know, but it's practical. It's a way of looking at it. And the way to look at it is when you build this plane, that isn't when it's finished. It's finished when you hang it up on a wall or you give it away, or you crash it. We don't say that word, crash. But you should be constantly looking at which is the heavy side. Do I need to get weight out of the tail or weight out of the nose? Rather than adding nose weight, get weight off the tail. That's if you do have to deal with the vertical CG, you'd like to get the lightest wheels that are practical on a plane. Now, obviously, if you fly off rough grass, you need to have bigger wheels, but then you're going to need maybe one of those Joe Adamusco counterweights up here to get the vertical CG back. The point is working on always keeping the plane as light as possible isn't as obvious as it may seem. It isn't just leaving off the paint, because then it's not going to balance anyway. What you want to do is you want to find the CG that you're comfortable with, and then if your plane's nose heavy, start at the very front. Spinner is the most obvious thing. A lighter propeller. Not all props weigh the same. If you have a heavy motor, a 9-ounce motor, think of a 6-ounce motor. And if money's no object and you're ready to go for full competition, well, you can go for a carbon fiber tank, knock another ounce and a half off. But every time you do this number, it's like losing weight. It just comes tumbling down. And in the case of the B-25, we've gone from having what was a good flying plane, and we've turned it into what I think is a really exceptional plane. I think it's better, and it's going to get better in the future too, because there's still other things I can work on. The thing I'm going to be working on a B-25 is to get those nylon Perry-type carburetors. They'll be real light. That'll solve other problems that I have. But right now, every little thing that I can get weight off without losing either the power or whatever, it's like it's free lunch. Even on a Brodak Cardinal, if you get even 1 or 2 or 3 ounces off, and then the most obvious one, you see somebody flying a plane with a big 4-ounce or 3-ounce muffler, well, and it's nose heavy. What's the first thing? Put a tongue muffler on there. Once you start thinking in terms of get the weight off the heavy side, I think that's the kind of information that you'll have a philosophy that'll serve you well for every plane you ever build. Now there's one other thing that in the last day, and we didn't shoot any video because I was the only one at the field, I didn't have anybody to do camera work, by converting the B-25 over to solid lines, I've gotten rid of just over another ounce of tip weight. And that's brought me down into the 78 where I never thought I'd be. 78 ounces for an airplane that has really 22 ounces of motor and carries 10 and a half ounces of fuel, that's kind of amazing to me. But this is what I call when you pull out this is not what you want to do to start. But if everything else is done and there's nothing else I can get out, getting rid of that ounce of tip weight is a significant thing. Now, there's other things that I want to, hopefully in the near future, the thing I'm hoping for, and Richard Oliver, because these motors are, well, because you have two of them too, Richard had looked at the possibility of making some lighter cranks, and hopefully a half ounce less each, and if that were to come, and it isn't yet, if that were to come by later on in the season, I would be down in the 77 ounce range. And I just think, even at this, it's an astronomical improvement over being back at 86. I think every time we take a bite out of this, it's just getting better and better and better and better. And I haven't started buffing off the paint off the bottom of the back end of the plane, which I know somewhere at the end of the season or maybe next season I want to take that all off. I know I probably can. My target used to be 78, 79. I'm shooting for 75. If I can get the lighter cranks in the motor, and along with some other little things that'll just be lighter, a quarter of an ounce here, a little bit here, a little bit there, there's just always something you can do. And the opposite of this is when you have a plane that starts out at 40 ounces and then you glue something on and you add something and glue something and add something, and it winds up being heavier. Now my planes typically get lighter as they get older. And this one is really exceptional. But we are really, at this point in time, with the solid lines, all the weights out, all the lightweight hardware on the motors, the lighter wheels, I mean, we've just really opened up a new can of performance here, and I hope, and it's just, if nothing else, it's made the plane a lot more fun to fly. Just to round out this little dissertation, I think each stunt design, at least in my knowledge of the sport of model aviation, is there's a plateau, and to make something really reasonable that we'd all understand rather than a B-25, I think we'll use a Nobler. A Nobler, in my case, I always thought had a range of between 40 to 45 ounces, where it really was. And by the way, Bob Gieske used to paint his planes until they got to be 43 ounces. He liked 43. He hated too light and hated too heavy. He peaked. He thought the peak was at 43 ounces for a Gieske Nobler anyway. Slightly different design. But in here, you have a plateau where I think you really get maximum performance. Now, what happens if your plane happens to be here? It's good, but you can make it better. And if it's down here and it's a little bit too light, it'll probably have some kitiness in the wind, or be difficult to land, or maybe self-destruct in time. It won't last too long, since we're always trying to build our planes to last a long time, and they seem to be doing that. But what I'm hoping is that right now I've just entered, with the B-25, I've entered this zone, and maybe by the end of the summer or by the end of next year, we'll be here. Now, the reason I want to be here is because then, and if you've been following along in the video, then I can take this B-25, and this will be just the greatest of things. I can calculate all the moments and all the little things, the CGs, the motors, the weights of things, and then when I make the A26, I'll have that same thing that Kent Tyser had, of starting out with something that you knew worked, and it would make the A26 just an incredible project. And so, not that the B-25 leaves a lot of people breathless, but this is why I'm striving toward fighting this weight, because I want to find that plateau. And knowing that plateau, then when I know with the A26, I'd like to build it at that weight. See, when I built the B-25, I had no idea what it was going to be. But since we're using the same wing, same basic aerodynamics, rough same size and shape, same motors, well, we hope we're going to be able to convert a lot of this information from ship to ship, and that when the A26 flies the first time, it'll be like Kent Tyser flying his plane. It'll have all the goodies in it, and will be at least a year ahead on our development. And if that comes to fruition, I'll just be thrilled. And if it doesn't, I've already learned a million things from this B25 project. When I look back, as I do often, on some of the original B25 flights that we had, and then I compare the flights that I have for my rough video for this season, well, it's just night and day. It's just really, it's made my, look at this TV going crazy. It's just made a project like this really be a lot of fun. It's really been a load of laughs having this. It's hard to describe how much fun it is flying this B25. And like we do from every project, I hope we learn something. And it isn't much good to learn something from a project if you're not willing to share it with everybody. I think we've done well to learn from our projects and share both the good and the bad information. And I often wonder just how much fun it's been along the way. How many things that I've come up with, I call them my little inventions, like the Z-Tron here. Flying the first 91 at the top 5 fly-off, flying the first Z-Tron, and I'm sure it won't be the last. And adding something to the legacy of some of the really neat semi-CL stunt ships that have gone before me. It's a really, really interesting part of our event. I find it challenging, interesting, and most of all, just a lot of fun. And even like just building the 5-bladed props for the Seafire. Everything you learn is a building block. You get up on top of that block, and then you try to build on to the next level. The sliding canopy, the little exhaust stacks, the carbon spinners. It just, one thing builds on another.
Al Raby's really magnificent semi-scale planes.
And of course, all the way back to Harold Price when he converted this plane into being the first Crusader that I had ever seen. So we're going to start packing and getting ready for Brodax. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you've enjoyed sharing the little adventures and the little things that we've learned along the way. We're always glad to pass on and share what we've learned. And thanks for joining us, and we hope we'll see you after Brodax on the next tape in this series. The closing thing is to just remind myself that every day at the field should be an adventure, and if you know where you're going, it really isn't an adventure. Well, the baby birds are gone. They've fledged. We've learned a lot about the B-25 in the last couple of weeks, and we're really looking forward to having a great time at Brodax, as we always do.